There's a new low bureaucracy Eastern European country that's rolling out a new digital nomad visa, but there's a caveat. I'm going to share the opportunity and the twist. I think Eastern Europe is an interesting place from a lifestyle perspective with lower cost. You've got lots of different interesting cultures that people don't often visit. You've got beautiful things to see. You've got business opportunities, not only in terms of potential opportunities themselves. You've got the ability to do hiring. You've got the ability to kind of have the best of East and West cultures kind of melded into one in some cases. So I've been a fan of Eastern Europe. There's a country that I have spent time in. It's a country that I've done some business in, but is not one of my hubs. It is now rolling out a new digital nomad visa. That country is Latvia. I'm going to tell you the details, but there happens to be a twist in this case, and I'm going to tell you if it's right for you and what some of the alternatives are. If it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consultancy that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally reduce their taxes, diversify and protect their assets, get second passports, just basically make sure that they are in control of their lives and their businesses by using international strategies that puts them back in the driver's seat. We also host the biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live, open to absolutely everyone. And so I came across this on a travel website called Travel Off Path. It's been kind of all over the news that Latvia is rolling out an Eastern European visa. And what this is being pitched as to many audiences is, oh, here's a visa that is targeted at Americans, targeted at Canadians in particular. I'll tell you why. Digital nomad visas are becoming quite popular, really picked up steam in the pandemic, where basically, much like Georgia, for example, already had this kind of 1-year tourist visa. You just come and you can hang out for a year, which generally speaking would make you eligible for some of their tax friendliness. Other countries are now saying, hey, come and stay for 6 months, come and stay for a year, come and stay for 2, or even now, 1 or 2 places are like, yeah, 5 years, get a 5-year. That's like a residence permit. That's better than many temporary residence permits. Just come and stay here. Now, they're not really the same as temporary or permanent residence permits. I don't know that they could be used as visa waivers if you wanted to use them to go somewhere. So for example, if you have a digital nomad visa from an EU country, does that count as a residence permit if you need a visa to go to Mexico and the EU residence helps you get in? I don't know that it does. It also is not going to generally lead to citizenship, in my understanding. I don't think most of these do. But it's a way that if you just have a job or a business or whatever the criteria call for, you generally need a certain amount of income. Hey, fill out a form, pay anywhere from nothing to a couple $100, and you can go and live in that place. And what I've said is, be careful of the tax ramifications. Some countries have specifically carved out no taxes. Other countries haven't really said anything. It's like, okay, maybe you have to pay some taxes if you otherwise would meet the criteria of being a taxpayer in that country. And if you're an American, that may cause a little bit of confusion where now you're filing taxes in 2 places and if you're not used to that. Anyway, so what Latvia is doing is they're rolling out a digital nomad visa that, unlike most digital nomad visas that you'll see, is open to a specific number of nationalities. And in this case, it's open to citizens of member states of the OECD. The OECD, basically the high tax lobbying group where they go and represent the US and France and those countries and beat upon poor developing countries and force them to be less competitive so that you won't go there, so that the country you're coming from can continue to be uncompetitive. And so they've got a list of several dozen member states, the US and basically most Western countries. Obviously, if you're already an EU citizen, you don't need a digital nomad visa to go and live in Latvia. You just go and live in Latvia. You don't need anyone's permission. So if you don't happen to have a US or a Canadian or Australian or New Zealand passport, Turkish citizenship by investment, probably the easiest way. Turkey's a member of the OECD. Other than that, Costa Rica just joined, Colombia, Chile. If you've been living in those countries for any number of years, you could have gotten their passport, including in Colombia, without a lot of living, but just an investment. So this is basically for folks who already have the quote-unquote, tier A passports. And so if you don't, then you're going to be out in the cold. The difference, however, is that Latvia has its own sort of golden visa. It's been around for a long time. It used to be much more popular. Almost nobody applies for it anymore. They almost shut it down earlier this year, but then they reversed course and just said, okay, well, just no Russians. But this program allows you to basically buy one property in Riga, or I think you buy a couple of properties outside of Riga. But you need to spend 250,000 euros, and then you need to pay a fee that's going to be in the low 5 figures. You can also make kind of a subordinate bank deposit, where it's not technically a bank deposit, but it's an investment with a bank. Or you can have some kind of enterprise, you can pay some tax. So for most folks, if you're willing to buy a property in Latvia, you can get a residence permit that lasts for 5 years. And that's going to put you on better footing than a digital nomad visa. One of the things that I'm seeing reported is that this digital nomad visa lasts for 2 years, and there's no local sponsorship, and then the country will be offering this kind of path to permanent residence to those who apply to remain in Latvia once the 2 years are over. And so after 5 years of legal residence in Latvia, you can apply for permanent residence. And then after permanent residence, you can work 5 years and apply to citizenship. The challenge with Latvia has always been, and we've talked about this with our clients in the Golden Visa, to become a citizen is basically about a 9-month per year commitment for the 10 months. Latvia's taxes aren't the worst in Europe, but there's certainly many better places. And if you don't like the cooler weather, some people do, by the way, then you're committing a long time for getting a good passport. You can go pretty much anywhere in the world that you want. But if you're going to put in that much time, is Latvia your number one place? And so the bottom line is getting permanent residence does require you to be there. Now, theoretically, if you're there on the digital nomad visa for the 2 years, you're going to spend the time. And okay, you're going to put in those 2 qualifying years. Are you going to spend 3 more years there? And it's unclear to me what the mechanism is for you to switch from a 2-year digital nomad visa to something else. Are you going to then start a company? Are you going to get a job? Like what is the mechanism to go from the first 2 years on the digital nomad visa to the next 3 years that you would need to get to permanent residence? What's also being, I believe, erroneously reported is that permanent residence then begets citizenship, and that's not really the case. You would need to spend additional time to get the citizenship. So you're looking at quite a number of years spending the vast majority of your time in Latvia. Oh, and by the way, you have to learn Latvian to get their citizenship. So probably better deals in Europe. Listen, I happen to find Riga to be a very charming city. It's small, it's walkable, which I love. I was there the first time in the winter, and I just found it very charming compared to a lot of other places in Europe in the winter, just very idyllic in many ways. I happen to like some of that weather in my life, and so I think it's an interesting place to be. I think the banks have had some challenges over the years. Certainly, you could argue now that some of the connections with Russia are potentially proving challenging. But I don't see this digital nomad visa. I don't see digital nomad visas in general as the best way to go. I don't think they offer you enough substance. I don't think they build enough optionality. They don't build enough permanence. It's not a bad thing if you already have residences and citizenships and you just want to live in an additional place that maybe doesn't offer a residence or citizenship. But to me, most places that are rolling out digital nomad visas have regimes where through some kind of small investment or opening a bank account or starting a small account, like doing something, you can get a residence permit that's going to be much more stable. You can keep renewing it. And you're not chasing the pipe dream that, hey, if I spend 2 years on a digital nomad visa, then I'm going to switch to some other kind of residence, and then I'm going to spend more time. Like, the point of digital nomad is not that you want to spend 5 to 10 years living in a country. And so I'm okay with you spending 5 to 10 years in a country, preferably one that's tax favorable, where you can then work towards getting citizenship. And hey, again, Latvian's a good one. But it just doesn't make sense. And I think that people often try and conflate multiple goals together. If I am an entrepreneur investor and I like the idea of Latvia, I think it happens to be a decent program. I'm going to invest 250,000 euros. I'm going to get a residence permit. I don't have to be there. Okay. If I want to be there, I can. And now I can travel around Europe as well. And now I'm in Europe. If I want to spend a substantial amount of time there, I can get permanent residence. If I don't, I could just go and pay several thousand euros every 5 years and keep the temporary residence. Okay. And if I want to work towards citizenship, I'm not going to work towards citizenship on that golden visa in all likelihood. I'm just not. I'm going to go somewhere else where I'm going to get more bang for my buck, less time in the country, faster timeline of naturalization. Okay, so if I want optionality, that's what I'm going to do. Now, Greece has a similar program for about the same price in Europe. That's going to give you, similar deal. So, hey, maybe you like Greece more than Latvia. So, like, once you start opening up all these different options, if you have some money to invest, I wouldn't be spending time on digital nomad visas. I don't like the fact that they're excluding various countries. I don't entirely understand why they're doing that, but it's certainly their right to do that. I think that Latvia's done a lot of good things. I just don't exactly see how this digital nomad visa or any helps you with residence and citizenship, which is the name of the game. And I would focus more on golden visas. If you like the idea of just living there and hanging out for a couple of years, then it's not a bad deal if you happen to have the right passport. Otherwise, I would look more at golden visas that gives you the option, but not the requirement.